Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate you taking over for me.
Yeah,
Sorry
no
I'm not
problem.
there.
No problem. Yes, I've got the agenda here as well. I'm actually going to go get a notepad real quick so I can take notes, and then we'll get started. So we'll get started in a couple of minutes here, folks. Thank you.
Is anybody else in the room with you over there, Jerry, or just the two of you guys?
Just the two of us so far. I did get your call. The particular slide is a cut and paste right out of the code book. So I can't edit it without, going back to my computer and doing it, but I will mention it.
Okay, yeah, great.
It'll like change 1 point from year to year. I don't even know if I really needed both those slides in there, but we do have energy specialists as part of our collaborative, and I think it's important to them to know what the changes are.
You're talking about the ERI?
Yes.
Yep, yeah. Yeah, I think it might have just been an accidental add in there because there's a separate slide for ERI later on for the 2024.
I'll get it fixed.
Okay, yep.
Got the agenda here. Got in addition to that, so I believe Jerica as well. In a couple minutes during announcements.
Yeah, Daniel, I had a couple of slides, but I'm wondering if Jerry's gonna cover what I was planning to cover. I think I saw one of his slides that may be already what I was planning to cover.
Cool. We can, after Jerry's presentation, we can check in and you can talk about anything really quick that you think we didn't already cover. That sounds good? In case
Sure.
there's not a complete overlap.
Yeah, I think yeah, Jerica, I think it'd be, if you want to give the update early on, that'd be
Okay.
good. There's one slide in there showing
The
the
changes.
savings, yeah, the kind of our IECC chart over the years.
Yeah. Okay, well,
but
maybe
that's it.
Plan to go first then because I think I only have like 4 slides, so
Cool.
I don't know if I'll share, but
I want to go last.
Okay. I'll stop sharing this then. I go ahead and see if I can make you co-host real quick.
Thanks, Daniel.
Yeah. All right, Jerica, you should be able to share now. All right. Once we hit 5 past, we'll get going with introductions.
okay. I can wait to share until everybody introduces themselves and everything too. So.
We are in windshield scraping weather. We have 1 garage slot for 3 cars in my place. So and one of my roommates has never had a garage before, so we are very nice and gave him the privilege. So that means I suffer, but that's all right.
Each.
Exactly. All right, it's 5 past. Looks like we've got some good amount of folks here already. So again, in case some people have joined. Normally Lance hosts and moderates these for the most part, but Lance is doing important legislative things. And so I'm Daniel, I'm gonna be stepping in and hopefully not talking too much today. If real quick, we could just go around and do quick introductions, just name and, position and organ, all that stuff. So I'll start. I'm Daniel Mosikevich. I'm actually the grant specialist over at the Association of Idaho Cities.
And Jerry Peterson with Home Energy Services here in Boise.
All right, and Charlie?
Have to unmute. Charlie Allen, City of Ammon.
And Jerica?
Jerica Stacy, International Code Council.
Tess?
Tess Studley with the Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance.
Ted?
Ted Lancy, City of Coeur d'Alene.
Damon?
Damon Woods, University of Idaho, Integrated Design Lab.
Jason?
Jason Blaze, building official for City of Boise.
And Brian?
Brian Umai, Government Relations Manager for the International Code Council.
Thanks for being here, Brian, and we'll give you an extra second in a minute here to just go ahead and fully introduce yourself as we've gotten the agenda. Thank you for being here. Sethrin? Am I butchering that name? I apologize in advance.
You're good. Craig Etherton with Coeur d'Alene Fire, and I am the current president for North Idaho Code Enforcers.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. Lance?
Hey, everybody. So I'm Lance. I'm from the Association of Idaho Cities team. I'm their policy analyst. Ted, I just wanted to be able to show you my face so we could actually say that we've somewhat seen each other in person or via Zoom, however we want to say the right thing. But appreciate everyone hopping on and your participation.
Yeah, my pleasure. Good to meet you in somewhat person.
Thanks again, Lance. Brett?
Yeah, Brett Stoddard, City of Rexburg. I also represent Idaho Association of Building Officials.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Brett. Lee?
Lee Dilly, American Institute of Architects.
Awesome. Great. Thanks for being here, Lee. Bobby?
Bobby Kaufman. I'm with Clearwater County, Idaho, and also part of Idaho and the Idaho Permit Techs.
So thanks for being here. Todd?
Hi, everybody. Todd Greenwells, excuse me, senior engineer at Idaho Power.
Thanks for being here, Todd. Lauren?
Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Marcus. I'm with ArcSys in Boise.
Thanks for being here. Kathy? Kathy here?
Hi. Yes, sorry. Kathy Wold with Intermountain Gas.
No problem. Thanks for being here. And Kevin?
Can't hear you, Kevin.
It's all right. We will circle back.
We can't hear Kevin, but Kevin's also he works on my team with the Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so thanks everybody for that. And real quick, Brian, we have on our agenda. Go ahead and take a minute or two, introduce who you are, and we're excited to have you.
Brian,
you're Brian. It's okay. It's Thursday. We're all feeling it.
Rookie mistake. As I said earlier, I'm Brian Umai. I'm the new government relations rep for International Code Council. My territory includes Idaho, but it also has Alaska, Washington, Oregon, Montana, and Hawaii. Until this morning, I was the newest government relations member team with ICC, but we just brought somebody on in the southeast of the United States. Jerica suggested that I join this group to try and learn more about code adoption in Idaho, and I'm happy to be here. I see there's actually a lot of familiar faces on the screen, so that's certainly very comforting. But I'm happy to be here and learn as much as I can. Unfortunately, I will have to leave a little bit early because I have a legislator meeting coming up.
No problem, Brian. It is that time of year. Thank you so much for being here, and congratulations on the new position. I know the feeling. So let's see. We've got a couple training announcements coming up. Jerry, do you want to do those? Or do you want me to go through those? Okay, yeah. So we've got three here. We've got an Idaho Building Code Board meeting on February 11th. So it looks like that's the next board meeting. I think we're going to talk a little bit later about what might come up during that and some of the stuff we're still working through. On March 12th, we have an air balance training coming up. So look out for links on that. They'll be announced a couple more times, probably in February and in early March. And then all the way out in April, we've got April 8th and 9th, we've got a DET training coming up. So again, that's far enough away that you'll hear about that a couple more times. You'll get some links in the future. Go ahead and you can email either myself or our info@idahocities.org email or Lance for more information on any of that. Do you have any questions on that? I know that's kind of fast and a lot of those are far out. Okay, awesome. And then next up, we have our stakeholders quarter. Ted Lancey, if you are here, yes, you are.
Sorry, Daniel, can we actually let Jerica do her?
Yes,
first?
that's right.
Yeah, thank you.
I have three
Sorry, Ted.
emails open and I'm forgetting to switch through them. Jerica, you go ahead.
It's all right. It's all right. We got you.
You go ahead and do your thing first.
You are totally fine. Thank you very much. Jerica Stacy, Director of Technical Training at the Code Council. I work on all of our energy code problems. That's a slip of the tongue. Our energy code projects here at the Code Council. And in December, right before the big holiday season, like December 20th, DOE actually issued the determination on the 2024. We had kind of been guessing at what the energy savings would be, and we now have some concrete numbers. So I asked Lance and Tess if it would be okay if I talked about just what this report looks like, and then give you a link so you can do the rest of the reading yourself. And I saw that Jerry was probably going to talk about this too, so we'll try not to overlap each other too much, but. So for those of you that are not familiar with a determination, the U.S. Department of Energy is tasked with issuing a determination every time there is a new version of the code. So for residential, they look at the International Energy Conservation Code, and for commercial, they typically look at ASHRAE Standard 90.1. We did get a comparison of the commercial provisions of the IECC last year. I'm not sure if we'll see that this year, just with the new administration and funding and things like that, but hopefully we do. But when they compared the 2024 IECC to the 2021 IECC, they found it to be almost 8% more efficient when we're talking about site energy use intensity, or EUI. And then they actually break down a couple of other metrics so that jurisdictions that have other savings goals, whether it's cost savings or carbon emissions reductions, can also follow along as well. So on the screen here, you'll see 7.8 site energy savings, 6.8 annual source EUI savings, 6.6 cost savings, and 6.5 carbon emissions reduction savings. And when we look at the comparison between 2024 and the 2006 IECC, which is really what we consider to be the first modern energy code, and really what we compare so many other things to, like our reference buildings when we're talking about energy rating index and things like that, we're looking about a 45% increase in efficiency between the two. So I saw this slide in Jerry's presentation. This is just showing you the changes in efficiency over time. You'll see there's quite a bit of change between the 2018 and the 2021. We were at about 9% change in efficiency between those two, and then we're getting another almost 8% increase in efficiency in the 2024. And a couple other things that I thought were really important just to pull out of the report for us to consider is that there were 273 approved code changes for the residential provisions alone. So we know that we've talked at length about how we switched to the consensus committee development, which Charlie was a big part of the residential side of that. And so we saw a lot of code changes for 2024, over 800 for residential, and 273 actually made it into the code. But when we actually look at the breakdown, we see that the majority, 78% or 219 of those changes, actually had no impact on energy use. They were administrative in nature or changes to definitions, that sort of thing. And then 54 changes actually impacted energy use. The majority of those, 48 of the 54, actually reduced energy use, which we would expect to see. And then 6 of them increased energy use. And then DOE also just made a list of the most impactful changes to the 2024. I know Jerry's going to cover all of this, but these 7 here, additional energy efficiency credits in R408, the reduced fenestration U factors in climate zones 4 and 5, and then reduced skylight U factors across the board, the changes that we have to our air leakage requirements, increases in pipe insulation for hot water piping, so going from an R3 to 1 inch, requirements for an ERV or HRV in climate zone 6. So in 2021, we required it in 7 and 8, and then we brought that requirement into climate zone 6. Some changes to the exterior lighting requirements for multifamily. The code is actually going to send us to the commercial provisions for that. So some of the changes on the commercial side are impacting the savings that we'll get on the residential side. And then in red here, that reduction in the ceiling insulation, that's really where we're getting that reduction in energy savings. I will stick in the chat, but all of this information is found on the Building Energy Codes program website, buildingenergycodes.gov, and you can find that summary that I showed as well as the full energy savings analysis report for the 2024.
Jerica, can you email me that one slide so I can update mine? Mine's only good to 2022.
Oh, sure.
Progress over time.
Yep. And yeah, I just pulled that straight from, I just took a screen grab from the website, but I can send you these too. That's easy, Jerry.
Thank you.
Yep. Well, thank you all. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Jerica? All right, awesome. Jerica, if you could also, I think Lance would probably like those slides if possible, so that we can send them out on the meeting wrap up next week after this. I think he'd really appreciate that.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. All
Thank
right.
you for letting me.
Yeah. All right. Now that I actually know what order we're doing things in, next, Ted, we have you for our stakeholders quarter. You're from the city of Coeur d'Alene, and this is just an opportunity. You know, we're glad you're here to come in and just talk about some of the energy challenges that you've been seeing or facing in your area. So, Ted, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to get in front of the board and actually meet everyone. I think I know half the people that are on this call, so already met you at one point. Yeah, my history with energy codes actually goes back to the early 90s. I started out as a weatherization contractor, and I was working with back when it was Washington Water Power and Kootenai Electric. So I've been involved with this for a number of years, and it's amazing to see the changes we've had over time. And so one thing Lance had mentioned to me, he said, kind of give it, as far as what you're looking for, I don't want to know what works, what doesn't, some of the issues we've run across. Excuse me. A lot of the changes that I've seen personally from when we first adopted the international codes and started enforcing the energy codes was back in 2003, 2005, when it really got started. We've seen a lot of improvements on just going from standard insulation requirements to requiring air barriers in attics. That's been a huge improvement. It helped reduce some of the convection issues that we had in attics just by introduction of air barriers. Lighting, we're seeing this from our homeowners. They're talking about how much more efficient their homes are with the newer builds. We're seeing things like I would say probably one of the biggest one is the heating systems. Now that we're not oversizing our mechanical equipment and our ductwork, it seems like that's been one of the largest improvements we've had. And I know we sat through a lot of Jerry Peterson's and Brett Makula classes back in the day, and those are really starting to show at this point. So it's really helping out. Some of the biggest challenges we still see is, I would say, condition crawl spaces. That would be one of them. Proper installation, making sure that they're installed properly, that the floors are sealed properly. The air exchange from a crawl space seems like we're still getting this complaint from homeowners that they get this musty smell. One thing about Coeur d'Alene, a lot of our soils are pretty free draining. A lot of sandy loam, a lot of sand, silty sand. So we don't have necessarily drainage issues. We don't have moisture issues. But when we look at conditioned crawl spaces and there's no ventilation going into that crawl, those have to be sealed up tight. So it tends to be an installation issue we run into a lot. But so we do have concerns, how we approach conditioned crawls, making sure there isn't some kind of ventilation that goes along with that to help remove some of the humidity from those crawl spaces. Another thing that I was looking at would be helpful is if we had a better way to properly size our mini splits and any electric cadet that do go in. Most of our systems are ducted and most of them are natural gas. But every once in a while, we're seeing a lot more accessory dwelling units. And mini splits are very common nowadays. So we usually run have the designer run a manual J calculation and then we do a comparison to that to what the BT or the BTU rating versus the kilowatt hour is. And so there's not, from what I can see in the code, a really clear path on how to streamline that and make it a little bit better to make sure we properly size our electrical equipment. Kind of going back to a little bit of the ventilation. I know with a lot of the code is tending to go towards tighter homes. And so that's another concern is as we move forward, we're creating tighter homes. We're potentially have this moisture issue that could come up on us. We ran into that under the Northwest Energy Code back in the 90s, where we had all of basically the ceilings had a 6 mil poly, the exterior walls had 6 mil poly, and then suddenly we had the air exchanges weren't there. And so what it ultimately resulted in was a lot of these, what we call fresh air 80s were brought in to try to mitigate some of that moisture and help control it. What that did here was most of them were covered with a plastic bag after a while, because when it's 5 degrees outside, no one wants cold air coming into the building. We've moved a lot better position now, but I just hate to see wrapping a home too tight and then us getting back into that situation where we don't have healthy air inside the buildings. And so that's a real concern for me. I know I had quite a few areas here, but those were really kind of the bigger topics that I was looking at. But for the most part, this area, this region, we're doing pretty well. We've not had any major issues with the new designs. I would say our testing for the energy tightness for the homes are anywhere between a 3 and 5 air exchanges. So we're hitting that one pretty good. Anyway, kind of ran through that pretty quickly, but I don't know if you have any questions or comments.
I have a question for you, Ted.
Yeah.
How often do you think that folks are complying with the energy code using the energy rating index? Do you have a lot of HERS raters up in northern Idaho?
Not that many. Yeah, we have very few that are HERS rating.
Okay. I was just at the ResNet conference this week and met a HERS rater from northern Idaho, which seemed kind of random, but he was talking about how business was picking up. I was just wondering if you had seen an increase in the use of the ERI.
No, we're not seeing that. I mean, we do have a few of our builders that do their own energy performance evaluations, and so they're not. I haven't seen that they're actually volunteering on the HERS rating.
Okay.
Wonder if that's tied to maybe tax credits, Jerica, where folks are trying to meet the Energy Star and get those tax credits.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah, that was a question I had also is with the new administration, are we going to continue to have that credit for the contractors to qualify for? Anybody know?
We don't know anything about this new administration, Charlie.
That's the only fact at this point. I do think they're a little more secure, possibly, based on some of the language we've seen in the executive orders. But, yeah, we don't know for sure.
Yeah, Charlie, this is Todd with Idaho Power. Yeah, Lee Zeldin at the EPA chief, we need to, to your point, we got to find out what he's thinking with regard to any unspent IRA money. Because, that 45L tax credit, the 25C, 25D, all those are underneath the umbrella of the IRA. It's all funded by that. So, um, you know, I mean, totally, it's, $369 billion package of all industries across the U.S., but I've not heard anything myself. I did a presentation in front of about 35 builders last week, and they're all using ERI, and none of them knew either or had a guess as to what the feds are going to do with that money. But I've heard them say they keep talking about the Green New Deal as the item, but they're not specifically talking which programs underneath that umbrella they're actually really considering, possibly changing or doing nothing with. But it's that Green New Deal verbiage I'm hearing right now. Whatever that means. I mean, it's not tied to any.
Well, yeah. And maybe this would help Jerica with her question also is it seems like 100% of the ERIs that we're getting in our jurisdiction are because of the tax rebate. Nobody's doing an ERI. Well, I think I shouldn't say that. I don't know their total intent, but it seems like they're really wanting to capture that tax credit. And if it wasn't there, I don't think we'd have too many doing the ERI.
No, I agree with Charlie. We asked them all specifically, and none of them. I think one was doing prescriptive, but they're all going after 45L.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions for Ted? Jason, I saw you unmute a little bit earlier. Do you still have a question?
I was just gonna say, dang, Ted, you brought back memories of those fresh air 80s back in the 90s. I totally forgot about those things.
Yeah, that was like introducing a wind tunnel into the house.
I know homeowners hated them too, didn't they?
Yeah. I mean, they did change the air and they tried things out, but they were cold, so they got plugged up.
Yeah. Days in Latah County in the 90s. That's what I remember those.
Yeah, overall things have been going pretty well. I mean, pretty smoothly with the energy codes. I did notice that there's some movement towards the R49 in the 2024 codes, and I know like I say, back in the day, we kind of targeted R38 as being that prime spot for energy savings when it comes to attic insulation. And yeah, I'm not sure how that compares now with our energy rates and if it wouldn't be worth moving back to an R49, making it mandatory with that R38 with Energy Heal. So I don't know, maybe that's something worth looking at.
Any more follow-up questions or comments?
Ted, I had a question for you. Just given, proximity to the Washington state border, do you see, I guess, building equivalent to some of the Washington state codes in your area as well, since it's kind of shared? I imagine there's a lot of contractors working across the border up there.
Yeah, what we're finding though is that the contractors do work on both sides, but the energy code requirements in Washington, even when it comes to the designers don't even touch it anymore. They turn it off to a third party. And so they do all third party evaluation, from my understanding, is that they do a third party design and third party evaluation on the insulation systems. I've not talked to installers as far as comparison on that, so I don't know how it works for them or in their perspective. But yeah, so far they just seem to be managing to comply with our current energy code.
So
Well, thanks for the throwback to the Britt Macula days too. I worked with Eric for like a decade, and so
Yeah.
I definitely miss having him around.
So
Ted, it was all Greek to us when they first started, but it's all working out now. We see it.
So Ted, you had mentioned that you weren't sure how to if the conditioned crawl spaces weren't being done right and you were concerned with ventilation. So was your purpose coming on here to get some help with that, or what, or just to express your concerns? What was the reason, I guess?
Well, I guess as far as the topic goes, I was just asked to bring forward some of the concerns or issues we are running across. And so, yeah, if there's solutions out there that would help benefit these conditioned crawls, I'd love to hear them. But yeah, a lot of it falls to the installer side, and even the ones that we've looked at where everything appears like it's installed correctly. The seams are taped, the insulation's installed correctly. You still seem to get this bit of an odor that we get complaints over. And so that was one item that I brought up as an issue.
Yeah, so I can tell you that we are getting more and more here in Yammon in eastern Idaho. And one thing that we've learned is to require that contractor to dry out that crawl space before they cover it up. A lot of times there'll be snow in there and they'll put the floor joist on, and ice will stay there most of the winter while they're building the home. And then in the spring, when they go get time to finish, there's the ground's still really damp underneath that. So we require that and a visual inspection to make sure that it's been dried out enough to put the plastic over. I think that's one thing that's helped us because we had the same complaints. And so they'll have to put some heat down there, some heater. But anyway, of course, the code requires certain things that I'm sure you're implementing with the register. You have to have a register and a return error, But the other thing that we found that wasn't adequate, I guess, through trial and error was how to maintain the plastic in place, because the first time somebody would go down there, they would pull the plastic off the wall. And it's supposed to, as you know, it's supposed to be sealed. It's supposed to extend up the wall a certain amount of inches and then be sealed to the wall. And we would often find that it wasn't sealed anymore. That whatever they would use construction glue and smash it against the concrete. And then when somebody stepped on it a day or two later, it would just pull off. So we require tacking. We required them to tack that in either with like carpet tack strips or with washers and a firing pin, similar to some of the insulation that they fire into walls, the pins to hold the insulation.
Right.
And that's helped. Just a couple of things that I would give you a recommendation on is make sure it's tacked in place and not just glued, because it comes off so easy. And then that allows that smell to come up very easily. So for what it's worth, that's what we do.
Oh, thanks, Charlie. I suppose I should mention one other item that we have run across in the past was when it comes to the mini splits, when they first started up here, we started to see a lot more of them. They weren't designed for the low temperature conditions that we have. We ran into an issue with a lot of them were 10-degree was the low end on that heat pump, and so they would turn off. And so with every heat pump that goes in, that's if it doesn't meet the low energy rating or -1 temperature on that heat pump or mini split, we have to require electric heat. And so as a supplement, as a backup. And so for the most part, the installers are installing the correct ones now. But yeah, for a while we had to found out the hard way with a few homes where there wasn't the supplemental heat and heat pumps didn't keep up, and eventually the unit had to be changed out.
Right. There are not any quick comments or concerns. We're getting a little long on time. I just want to make sure we have time for everybody to present. But Ted, thank you so much for being on here. Thank you for giving us your time and your perspective. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And hopefully you've got something out of this. All right, thank you very much. And next we have Damon. If you have your presentation, I don't know, are you able to share and get all that going?
Yeah, I just sent you a request to share my screen. So
awesome. I think that might have actually went to Jerica because I made her the host.
I'll allow it this time, Damon.
Thanks, Jerica. And Jerica, thanks so much for what you're sharing as well. This will hopefully just add on to that. Hopefully this can get going. You guys seeing the right screen? It says Integrated Design Lab.
Looks like it, yeah.
Great. Jerica mentioned, a national 6.5% energy cost savings over 2021, which is great. And I'm trying to dive down on specific measures of how that impacts Idaho. And so we took the 2022 residential building stock assessment and made an energy model of it. So that's typical of Idaho, and looking at, okay, what are the different changes from existing to 2021 as well as to 2024. Specifically window, U factor, ceiling insulation, air tightness, heat recovery, and wall insulation as well. So for windows, I've got climate zone 5 and climate zone 6, and I'm trying to create these energy models in 4 locations: Boise, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho Falls, and Salmon, because each one has a different utility, and we get 2 different cities, 2 different climates in each climate zone. So the window update, in 2018 in Idaho, our existing code is U.32. If we move to the 2021 code, that goes down to U.3, and then for 2024, U.28. And looking at just annual, this is just utility cost savings. So not looking at install or anything else. This was simulating January 2025 rates for residential Idaho Power tariffs, Intermountain Gas for Boise, and in Salmon, also Idaho Power, and then Salmon River Propane at the current rate. So the savings in Boise were pretty modest for going to 2021, just a couple dollars a year, and also $4 per year in just electric savings. So not looking at energy use, but just utility cost savings, whereas it was closer to $15 in Salmon, Idaho. And I accidentally changed things around, and it is blocking my ability to get back to changing the slides. So hang on just a second. Microsoft.
Did advance on you. There you go.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, just stalled out for a minute. Sorry. So okay, so that was the savings for the windows. Savings for ceiling insulation. For 2021, it jumped up to R60 in both climate zone 5 and climate zone 6 for attic insulation. In 2024, it actually knocks it back down. So when Jerica was mentioning a few of those measures between 2024 and 2021, that actually pulled back on the savings, energy savings. I think this would be one of those examples. Looking at cost savings, going to R60 in Boise, it would save about $23 a year. But going from R38 to R49 would save about $15 a year. Whereas in Salmon, if you adopted the 2021, then you'd have about $40 in savings. But if we go all the way to 2024, which I know we're considering, just for consistency with code cycles, then there wouldn't be any savings because it's just staying at R49 and climate zone 6. For air tightness, looking across the codes, this is often a topic that comes up. The only change would be for climate zone 6 in the 2024, and that's just going down by half an air change per hour. And we no longer have the testing requirement in Idaho, so I'm not sure how we would verify that, but just looking at going from 3 air changes per hour to 2.5 in salmon would save about $23. And I think one of the big changes as well from 2018 to 2024 is the heat recovery ventilator requirement in climate zone 6. So that'd be salmon and I believe Idaho Falls. So how much would that save? About $130 for going from what I'm considering existing, which is just a central fan integrated system. So not an active, but just a passive draw into a central furnace, which is I modeled as about 100 CFM whenever the furnace kicks on. But that's not technically minimum ventilation, according to ASHRAE 62 requirements for a unit. So if you actually had like the full code specified minimum ventilation coming into the house, then you'd have closer to $460 in savings. So there was a chat. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay. And then next was a change in wall insulation. So in Idaho Climate Zone 6, we allow R22, just batt insulation in between the studs, whereas the 2021 and 2024 codes ask for at least R5 of continuous insulation. So I modeled that as well. And in Boise, it would save close to $20 a year. In salmon, going from R22 to the R20 plus 5 continuous insulation, save closer to $100 a year. I've only modeled one foundation type, so these are both single family homes with a crawl space. And I just reran them all using 2025 utility rates. I also want to simulate this for the same house with a slab and with a basement, and then also look at the climates and utilities for Idaho Falls and Coeur d'Alene, and kind of create a one-page document of these results, try and simplify it as much as possible for the February 11th meeting for the board. I can get that to Jerry. So feel like these are the best numbers I have to date, and they seem to line up pretty closely with the numbers that Jerica shared in terms of 6.5% energy cost savings, which would be about $95 a year in Boise and $183 a year in salmon. Just doing some back of the envelope calculations while we're on the call. So I'll eventually total that up, but I wanted to kind of break it up as much as possible for each of these different measures, particularly if there's going to be one that's controversial, like HRV or air tightness, or some of that continuous insulation, and try to show what the utility cost impacts might be specifically for an Idaho resident. And I'll keep working on this analysis, but I'll stop here if there's any questions.
Damon, I just thought of something.
Yeah.
I know that we're in climate zone 6, same as salmon. Do you factor in like heating degree days and stuff, the temperatures, average temperatures from salmon versus Idaho Falls, or did you do anything like that?
Yes, so the numbers that I'm showing are specific to just Boise and salmon.
Okay.
And I'm running it for the weather file from Boise and the weather file from salmon. So when I run Idaho Falls, it'll be specific to Idaho Falls weather.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments?
If I could, maybe I ought to just chime in a little bit here. I'm thinking that I've been watching a lot of legislation right now, and everything from electrical to building to other things right now with licensing and everything else. And it seems that things are getting, I guess, cut out or chopped off, however you want to say it, with these bills and things that are coming forward. If we are looking at trying to implement anything different than what we currently have with the energy code, for example, the new energy code or the 2024, then we would probably want to definitely have some of this data that Damon just presented of the cost benefit, because that's going to be a huge selling point. Because right now, what we're seeing at the legislature, I'm sure some of you have already seen this, but right now the legislature is basically taking out any call them new regulations or more restrictive regulations of any kind, and they're actually taking out some of the things that we've had in several cycles now. So I would say that that's going to be a pretty big selling point on the energy code, because if we don't have numbers or how someone's going to benefit from them directly, then I think it's going to be a pretty hard sell, if I'm being honest. So just some food for thought going forward.
And that's a good comment, Brett. I do know that Jerry has told me that he wants to talk. He's going to end up talking a lot about that too. So that's even something I think we'll circle back to after his presentation. We have both those kind of building into that. So thank you for bringing that up.
And Brett, along those lines, we have put together the last time this happened with the zero regs, we put together a whole list of like life safety benefits and life safety resources and things like that I think are also critical, because that's another part of why we have energy codes, or the life safety benefits. So as long as we keep reiterating that along with the cost savings, we'll survive. I'm hopeful.
Brett, you just got to sell it to them.
And let me try to address that as part of my presentation and what we're actually considering taking to the board, and then if I don't cover it, we can chat a little bit more about it.
Oh.
Any other questions or comments? I know it seems like we're all kind of itching to move on to Jerry's presentation. Thank you, Damon, for that. Appreciate it. And let me go ahead and let's see. Give it back to you. Let's see. Well, let's see if my request for screen sharing is approved by the Almighty. Is that all right? Can everybody see that? Yeah.
Yes, but it's not yours. It's not your slideshow yet. There you go. Now it is.
Yep. Okay. Want to make sure that was working. And I control it up there if you want.
Okay.
Look at it up there.
So I can move it.
I move it for the big screen. Just if you want to see it, it's up there. So just let me know when you want to advance it.
Okay. Excellent. So as we're presenting this to the board, I just want to try to clarify a couple of things. One, we're very, very early in the process. This is going to be their first introduction to the codes. And there's a lot of noise right now on, deregulation and stuff. And so I think, what I'm trying to offer the board this early in the process is we don't want to put anybody into a bad position or a reactive position. We just want to share some knowledge. So I know there are people that want to advocate. Also, I think everybody should understand there's probably people that are opposed to it. And I don't really want to get that debate going this early in the process. And so what I've done is, instead of saying we're opposed to something or we support something, I've just labeled some things as concerns. And to be general, anything that raises cost is going to be a potential concern. And so I tried not to be biased in this, just understand that the things that I've outlined as concerns are predominantly because of cost. And so I didn't want to go in there, and let me backtrack a little bit. I don't know that this presentation I put together today is going to be what the board wants. I can send it over to them and say, this is what I'm offering. They may come back and say, well, we don't want this, or we want this. I have other backup material. I have the commercial code. So this is more or less just a kind of an introduction to kind of get it kicked off formally. And so I broke it into 5 areas. The first one, I wanted to be a little optimistic and kind of, show that we've been doing a good job with the energy codes, the results of the field study, and at the same time, I've been asked to kind of point out the things that maybe we could improve on. And so we've done that as part of NEA stuff. I wanted to talk to them about the code collaborative, and remember that the members on the building code board, they're not energy people. In fact, we have a fire guy, we have a disabilities guy. Not all of them are directly involved in construction, and only a couple of them have any long-term background with the energy codes. And so we have to understand that and kind of bear with them. And so I wanted to kind of introduce them to what the collaborative is and what it does. And I'll throw a question out there for everybody. I've been involved with the collaborative since 2010, but I don't know how far back it goes. And so if somebody knows how long the collaborative itself has been together, email that to me, please. I'd like to include that. The cost analysis that I put in there are just a couple of snapshots from Damon's slides, and they're not intended to be all inclusive or to make a point one way or the other. They are more for an example of the resources that we can provide to the board. And so if they have a very specific question on something, we have a way to address that. It's not going to be immediate, but if they say, we want to know specifically what this does in this area, we have a local way to do that. We have a way to respond besides, or in addition to referencing them to, work that's being done by NEA, PNNL. And having a local university, gives us some credibility. It's local, we're using local climate data, et cetera. And so, again, I'm not trying to say we're trying to make this a point, as we're trying to just say, this is what NEA can do. This is what the collaborative does and can do. These are the cost analysis that's available to us, and wrap it up with a high view of the 2021 and 2024. There's no way I can get into a ton of detail on either of these. We just don't have, they're not going to give me that much time to do this. And so I've kind of picked out some of what I thought were the most important. And then also I want to direct them back to our website and let them know that, the collaborative meets once a month. We put a lot of research, we put a lot of resources together, and all of that's available to the board members if they want to go look at it. We have a central location for doing that. Next slide. And so this is that. I'm going to replace this graph with the one from Jerica so that it's updated through 24. Jerica, do you have one that shows the ash rate also? Because I think
Yeah.
we want to show both the residential and the commercial. If we can get that on one graph. Next
Yeah,
slide.
you can toggle on residential and commercial, but I'll send you the link and you can
Okay.
do either way.
So I can do just two slides if I need to. And
Nope,
so
you can toggle it on. It's good.
the first thing I wanted to start out with was the field study that we just recently did. And I know that, perception is everything, right? But we want to make the builders, feel like we're on the right track. There's a lot of people put a lot of time in this over the decades. Ted, thank you so much for your presentation. And I know there's, Charlie, and all the people that came before you, Russ, Carol Alexander, and there's a long list of them. And I appreciate all the work that everybody's done. Most importantly, we don't want to lose anything. And so I think it's important for the board to know that, hey, we are moving in a good direction. There's always more we can do, but we're not wasting our time or wasting your time. And so first slide, go ahead, is, pretty much this is, a good story that says, hey, we're doing pretty good. We're doing good in compliance and also in our energy savings. Could we do better? Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of opportunity there. I think the insulation is kind of something that's been problematic. And then also the air sealing. And the reason I put, go ahead, next one. I pulled these two out was because the builders very specifically asked me, is there one or two things that we can do? Is there something that we could do that would change things dramatically? And it's like, yeah, insulation and air sealing would be a huge head start. And so, if they decide they don't want to do all of this, it doesn't mean we still don't have things that we can do collectively to improve things. So this is just a little bit about the collaborative. Next slide. All of you guys have seen almost all of these slides, so I'm not going to spend too much time on them. The last time I checked with Lance, we had over 1,000 people on our contact list that are getting emailed about the meetings, that are aware of it. We've been doing these meetings since January, in person, online, and the meetings are recorded. And so if anybody wants to go back and look at those previous meetings, they're available, and all of this information is available on idahoenergycode.com. If you have a document or documents that you would like to share, please forward those. Let's take a look at it, or let's get them on our site so that, we can just direct people to hopefully a singular source for information. We also did our survey back in, I think the results were published in October. And I think the reason I picked these particular slides is I want the board to understand that this isn't regulators per se, this is representative of our stakeholder group and community. We have architects, homeowners, building officials, and we got a pretty good response to the survey. Next slides. And then these are, the generally supportive, of the two codes from those applicants. And so, we're never going to have total consensus on it, but we have majority consensus moving forward. And again, it's fairly widespread. The next one was going into the cost analysis a little bit, and go ahead, slide there. And again, I'm not trying to delve too deep into it. I think, it's not always best to highly condense the information, except for when we're, introducing it. But Damon has showed me the spreadsheets of, going down into the particulars of it. And so we can really get into the detail if somebody wants to know, the specifics and how we're simulating this and what the housing types, what all of that looks like. We have all of that. We have it available. If they want to see something more specific, we can provide that. So this was just there's always been a lot of concern about ERV, HRV. Before I went to work in the state in 2010, I worked on the HVAC licensing, and that goes back, prior to 2006. And this has always been, one of the heating contractors' big things. And so the reason I put this up here, go ahead, next slide, is I really wanted to point out that, when we get into specific areas and different fuel types, it can be huge. And so we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and paint it all as being bad, as much as we want the board to understand that, hey, these codes are climate specific for a reason, and they can be very beneficial in certain areas. We don't want to, we have to be careful when we're producing a code that is the minimum for the state. Are we really looking at the effects in these specific areas? This is kind of the other one that comes up a lot is the insulation. Again, we're not dealing down into specifics. This is just something to show for the Boise area. I asked Damon, we don't have the ones for Salmon and Idaho Falls yet, but the idea would be to, show the differences between the different climate zones. So this is kind of a placeholder. From there, we get into the 2021 and the 2024. In the interest of clarity and making sure that I captured the language right, what I did is cut and pasted these directly out of the ICC code book so that there's not room for interpretation. If there is red in the title or the section, then this is something that's been brought up as a potential concern. And so that's kind of how, what to look for on these slides. Next one. As Jerica mentioned, a lot of the changes were administrative. And so, typically administrative is beneficial. Anytime we can clarify through definition or, content, I think all of that is beneficial. And so, as we move forward, that's kind of the difference there, in my view. Next one. And again, these are examples. This is not so much a concern as I probably should just use a different color on it. I'll just change that red to blue. This isn't a concern, it's just a note to change. Sorry for putting it in red. Next one. I think the new certificates are extremely helpful. I think the certificates that we're currently using don't really provide a lot of benefit. I think we need more information on there. And specifically when the homeowners are asking for information and they don't know how to get it, who to call or where to get it from. I think the new certificates are going to be beneficial to the homeowner. This is just the stuff that's included on that certificate. We've already shown the insulation tables and stuff. Again, I'm not opposing anything. I'm not advocating anything. I'm just saying that this is where a lot of the discussion is, especially with the contractors. And so, I will point out that, these tables changed, from 18 to 21 and back to 24. Go ahead. Eve baffles.
Hey, Jerry, can I ask a quick
Sure.
question on that previous slide?
Yeah, go ahead and go back.
Is there a specific, because this is showing all the changes. Are there, did you want to focus just on the ceiling, or are there specific
No,
numbers?
So this is one of those areas that can really open up wide for conversation. And so I'm more or less just pointing out that, I don't know that I want to dig down into the details on this. I don't know that I'm going to have the time. There are, I believe, about 50 slides in this presentation. And if they restrict me to 30 minutes or 45 minutes, I'm going to have to talk really quick just to even get through the presentation. So I'm not trying to shortcut the process. This is a kind of an introduction for the board. And then hopefully by the end of that meeting, they will have specific questions or specific areas where they want more information. And then we can come back and address that in detail.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. I'm just a little weary, I guess, of marking this whole table, as red, since I think there's some changes there that people don't have concerns with.
So this table in the 2021 is a as they put it to me, is a non-starter. So it's obviously a concern with the contractors.
Because of ceiling?
Yes.
Okay. Jerry, I'm going to email you a couple of slides I have just that are specific to climate zones 5 and 6 that show the changes over time. Because I think if you can actually kind of ground them in like seeing that the envelope, it has changed, but very incrementally and not with each code cycle or anything like that, that you may consider including it. You don't have to, of course, but.
Like I said, we're early in the process, and what I'm trying to do is move through and introduce everything so that we can come back and address it more in detail. What I don't want to do is raise hackles right now with what's happening in the legislature and what the current trend seems to be towards, I just don't want anybody, saying, you know what, enough is enough, let's just throw this thing away. We have to avoid that. And so, whether my wording is not appropriate or my colors, these are things that have been, based on my personal experience as both an energy person and as somebody that has to write the rules and do the legislation. These are obvious concerns. And so how we paint that, I would prefer, just to try to not address it and just say, there's changes on the table. This is an example, and some of those changes were, put back in 2024. But I think what I've heard from most people is we should just maintain our existing table, the one we already have. And it's like, that's not me. I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm just the presenter.
Yeah, I agree that this table actually shows the 60, and so I wouldn't even use this one, just so it won't cause any consternation, or at least use one that shows the 49 again, Jerry.
Yeah, so this is the 2021, and right. I can tell them, when we, that this table was changed again in 2024. That's why I said I didn't really want to dig down into the details, because if we tell them they have to do R60,
Right, that'll turn everybody off. Yeah.
Yep. So it's just there, it's just like there's changes to the insulation tables, and then next slide. I try not to,
okay.
Try not to address it, but I can't leave it out. That's just it's not being honest. So
definitely what I've heard is the ceilings and the wood frame walls.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that'll help sell the 2024.
Yes. There you go. That would be ideal. Yes. Okay. Next slide.
Kevin, you have your hand raised real quick.
Yeah. Can you all hear me now?
Yes.
Lovely. Sorry that didn't work right at the beginning. Yeah, I think we kind of got to maybe a good point with this most recent discussion on this table specifically. But given that will surely have limited time and are trying to provide a whole survey, as was mentioned, to people who do not do this every day and are not deep in energy. Yeah, I would just wonder if there's some way, given that the board has voted and signaled that they want to go to 24, if we can simplify this set of information. I would, trying to sit in their shoes, I could see them being confused about like, why am I getting 2021 and 2024? I thought we were talking about 2024. I understand why it's being shared, presented, staged in this way, but just food for thought, probably applicable for other parts of this as well, as to how we can best educate with limited time the folks at the meeting.
So this presentation is in a direct response of what I was asked to provide, and the board cannot and did not want to jump the code cycle. They specifically said we want to see the 21 and the 24, and we need some type of a bridging document or a pathway. We want to see what the changes were between the 21 and 24. And so the format of this is in response to what they very specifically asked me for.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. Thanks.
So again, I'm not going to try to dwell on this table. We're just going to put it up there and say, this got changed in the 2024. And then when we get to the 2024, it'll be towards the end of the presentation. I'll know how much time I have and whether we want to address it or just tell them, we can do a more detailed dive on this and present it to you or email it back to the committee or the board, excuse me. Go ahead. This is eve baffles are kind of a Treasure Valley thing. Maybe some in the Twin Falls area, but this seems to be more of an issue here. And I won't talk to the board in that manner, but the reason why some of these things are, being covered is there's a lot of question on this about interpretation. And so this is one of those areas where, the code is quite beneficial, where it just says, hey, this is what we're trying to achieve here. And so I think it's helpful. Next slide. Basement walls, and again, I could spend 10 minutes talking about it, but it's just like there's some changes to the basement walls. And the areas of, if people have concerns about it, then they're aware of it. But we don't really have time to do a deep dive on these specifics. Next one. This is the air leakage. In 2021, there wasn't changes to the leakage rates themselves, but it's just a reminder that we already have an amendment in place for this and that it's optional. And that if somebody wasn't directly involved, we did provide through the ZBR, we did provide an exception for heated garages. This is new language for air sealing, which I think is really helpful. And if this comes up or someone wants to talk more in detail, this is one of those areas where there's a lot of information, both existing in the 21, in the 24, that I think would warrant some, putting it into some type of a singular document that we could just make available. The mechanical ventilation, this is a new requirement. And the concern here is, if we don't have people to do the testing, which was the primary problem with the blower door, then we still have that problem with testing anything really, or everything. So, this is just making people aware that, we still have those concerns that we haven't been able to address. So, this is another one that failed the cost justification thing. It's too, you know, I wish they would have put some sideboards around this, but we'll just, you know, again, we'll just leave it on there. It is part of what's being considered. I don't think people really have issue with the exterior one. It's the interior lighting ones. And specifically in smaller homes where you may only have a single fixture in these rooms.
Hey, Jerry, you can share that our code interpretation of that is that a manual on-off switch works for that in 2021. It does not work in 2024, but helps.
Okay, thank you. And this is the ERI. I know we have energy people on our collaborative, and we just want to make them aware that these are changing. It's now 55 and 54 and for 2021 code cycle. And then we have these additional efficiency options, and this gives me an opportunity to talk a little bit about what help me out. Who's our builder lobbyist? Anyway, he brought this up, that this was something that was supported by NAHB, both in the 21 and 24. And these are just a list of those options. And that wraps up the 21. Next slide. And then, you know, and I don't know what the perfect word is. Go back a slide. You know, if potential, I mean, if there's a better way for me to word this, but these are things that have been brought to our attention or have historically been concerns. So, Ken Burgess, thank you. And I should know, I should remember Ken's. I'm just going to concentrate on what I'm trying to present. Ken and I go
Hey,
way
Jerry,
back.
how about changing that to considerations instead of concerns?
Well, we're considering the code, so, you know, there needs to be some way to separate it. Anyway. So this is the new fenestration tables. And again, I really didn't want to get into too much detail on this because the biggest thing on this table is the continuous insulation in climate zone 6. And I've been told that's a non-starter. So
49 now.
We still have the I need to change this. I'll just retype this one because the air leakage testing for 2024 drops down to 2.5 in climate zone 6. I'll rewrite that slide. And we have new language on details for air sealing. And I think there's a couple of pages of that. Go ahead. And then this is a new requirement, and this is something that, you notice it's not in red because under the current air sealing checklist, this stuff is supposed to be sealed already anyway. But what it does do is provide a specification for these new outlet boxes. And so we want to make them aware that, you know, these products exist and there's a specification. Jarek had clarified that, you know, this was not this was an either or and not a mandate. So we want to make sure they understand that. But this is stuff that's supposed to be sealed already under the current air sealing checklist. Go ahead. This is the ERV, HRV required in climate zone 6. And again, it's, you know, it's in red. This is, you know, one of those things that we're probably going to have to provide some additional information on. We have the testing requirement again for mechanical ventilation. Go ahead. And then I think this is probably going to be one of the ones that we're going to have to do some work on. This is the heat pump requirement. Go back. So Charlie, I don't know how you guys do a lot of electric in your area. I know there's quite a few rural areas up north that are all electric. And this one is something that where we're limiting the buddy heaters and the resistance heating to 2 kilowatt. And if you do the conversion on it, 2 kilowatt doesn't get you very far on an all electric home. So
we don't do a lot, no.
okay. So on this particular one, it would be, as Ted Lancey brought up, if we're not specifying cold weather heat pumps in these areas, we could end up with some install problems and stuff. And so I didn't want to go into detail at this meeting. I just want to make sure that they're aware of it, and then we can kind of fill in the blanks moving forward. But we have the interior lighting controls again. And the reason I put this back in there is because it wouldn't be new to 2024, but it's still there. If we decide to move, into more discussion on the 24, we kind of automatically adopt everything that's in the 21. So we just want to make sure they're paying attention. This slide I need to reword. That actually changed 1 point in both climate zones 5 and 6. So the proper rating would be 54 and 53 respectively. And then we've changed the efficiency options. I think, go to the next slide and the next one. Yeah, those 2 slides need to come out of there. Sorry. This is the exterior lighting allowances. And again, I don't know if I need that in there. I kind of borrowed some of this. I probably should have done a closer final edit on it. Go ahead. There's the correct one. Yeah, so I cut and pasted a couple of documents together. I just need to clean those slides out of there. And then this is the new additional efficiency requirements, which is now 11 sections. And there is 5 there and the other 6 there. And then this breaks into a table. And so this table is multiple pages long. I didn't know, where to grab it at to use for an example, because I can't print it out. It would literally probably take 6 or 8 slides to show the entire table. I picked this specific table because the requirement says that you have to have 10 points. And if you look down at the very bottom line at where it says 10, my production built house is less than 1.5 air changes. And so and it was built in 2017. So this is not a super restrictive requirement. I think it's very fitting. It's very flexible. And again, this is what the builders supported nationally. And I think we can meet this requirement if we're not already meeting it. So, yes.
Jerry, one thing to note is that you have to have 10 credit points, but it has to come from at least 2 measures. So that is 10, but you'll have to get something else, but you can go for the super low hanging fruit.
Yeah, and so it would be anything basically. So, if we just move up to the total duct leakage, I met that requirement also. So this is the detail that we can ferret out for them. We can print out the full table if they want to see it, at a later point. But what I was trying to say was, I've looked through these tables. This is not something that is undoable or that would create a significant cost burden. This is just a matter of, picking which ones you want. We do want to remind everybody that we do provide free training. We've been providing this for a long, long time to contractors, homeowners, you know, whomever. And it's always been free. And you know, it's kind of response to what Ted brought up with the conditioned crawl spaces. We do have a training. I try to keep these updated and relevant based on the latest information and feedback. And so, you know, we have, you know, looked into ways to meet these requirements or the, you know, try to address the concerns that are being brought up ongoing. And that's all I have. There's our website again for resource information and my personal contact information. If you want, you know, I was asked to present, you know, I assume they're going to ask me to present this material. And I'm not trying to tie it to AIC or NEA. I just, you know, the Energy Code Collaborative obviously is part of our theme, but I was trying to do this and some form of independence so that, you know, I don't know, that's my thoughts on that. If you guys have questions and concerns, you know, suggestions for word changes, I'm happy to look at all of that. You know, I try to be unbiased in this. I think we're at this point, we're just trying to relay information. The advocacy, I'm not trying to take that away from anybody. I know people are very passionate about energy codes more than any of the other codes. And there's going to be an opportunity for that. And so the things I've listed as concerns, it doesn't take it off the table. It just says that we're aware, you know, and, you know, how we want to address that or how that needs to come together. You know, we will do that. I just would say, you know, this is probably a good time to, you know, try to keep the, you know, the volume down for at least a couple of weeks. And because right now everything is kind of up in the air and we don't want to throw a big target out there for somebody that, you know, wants to grab this to, you know, make a political statement. And for those of you that are following the legislature, you know, this is already happening. We've already had, you know, one bill up there that, you know, fits into the category I just talked about. And we don't want to encourage that. We just said, you know, the board has an obligation to review these codes. This is our, you know, opportunity to tell them the resources they have available to them, kind of a snapshot of some of the bigger items. And how can, you know, can we help them? Can we provide services or resources to them moving forward? Thank you.
Gary, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Did they ask us to mark the concerns, or are you just doing it to get ahead of the game?
So I hate to ask a question with a question, but I wouldn't say they approached us. They asked me during one of my previous comments if I could help them put together some type of a bridging document. And so I didn't think that just doing the code review would be adequate. I wanted to let them know that we're bigger than just, you know, code review. This is something that we spend a lot of time on. You know, that we're very knowledgeable, we're very broad in our scope. You know, we're not in a position, now let me rephrase that. We're not a decision-making body. We can't say we want this or we don't want that. I mean, we can individually, but as a collaborative, I'm not sure that would be the most appropriate, I should say. It's like, I think that if we provide people with good information, they make better decisions. but I don't think we can bundle up a package and hand them to them and say, this is what the collaborative wants. I don't know that we have that much consensus in our own group.
No, I don't think that's what I was asking. I was mostly just wondering, you've marked some of the slides as concerns, and I'm wondering if it would be more neutral to just present the information. And even if, as you're going through it, you say, like, we recognize that there's a concern here, rather than marking something specifically as a concern.
So
That seems to be more like you're advocating against it by just marking it that way.
I don't think it's an advocating as much as acknowledging. This is stuff that has historically been problematic and or has been voiced to me recently.
Sure, I get that. I was just wondering if the mandate or the ask was for you to mark things that were of concern, or if it would just be more beneficial to present it as is, and then you can talk through the concerns as you're going through.
This is always the difficulty for me, is we've been at this for over a year, and we're now 2 weeks away from presenting it. And this is all stuff that we've talked about, and this is the best that I could come up with. And it seems like we don't get a lot of engagement until we try to publish something or put something together. And it's, it is difficult. It can be a challenge. My challenge is I'm doing this as a volunteer. I maintain this position as a volunteer. I don't have a dog in this fight. And I think that's part of the mutual respect that I have with the board, so that when I present information to them, I'm not advocating. They understand that I'm not advocating or opposing, but I'm trying to be transparent. And if we know something is a concern, I think we're doing a disservice by saying, well, let's pretend that's not a concern, or let's not address that when we already know that it is. And if there is a better word, I mean, I'm trying to keep things, we can put potential concerns, or, I don't know what the perfect word is in there. That is the word that people understand, and that's usually how it's presented to us, is we have concerns with this or that.
Okay.
Todd?
Yeah, thanks, Jerry. On the commercial codes, maybe you said this already. Are we just going to consider those like a pass through, that those will be approved into 24? I don't know that we talked much about it. Just curious myself.
If we don't bring it up, they'll just do it, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking we're seeing it as.
So I think, to be honest with you and the group, I don't have a ton of background. I'm not an engineer in the commercial, but I think kind of the overlying thing is that we usually don't have a lot of opposition to the commercial, and I don't want to be in a position where they're asking me questions that I can't answer. And so if there is going to be a deeper discussion on the commercial, that's probably something that Damon and his team or somebody else is going to have to do. I'm just not that versed in it, Todd.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm just curious what. One other quick question. I know we got to go, but on that 2.5 ACH 50, if we're asked, like, what in the world do you do to hit 2.5? Do we have some ideas of tasks that can be done to achieve that? I know we're hitting 3 and 4 and 5-ish routinely, but I know you said through the years that when you get down to 2 and 3, there's deliberate things that need to be done to achieve that. But just to be prepared in case we're questioned on that, or you or anybody.
Yeah, so in my effective air sealing class, we identify 5 areas for air sealing. And if we just do the one that we've always done, you're going to end up in that 4 range. If you do 2 of those 5, you're going to end up in the 3. 3 to 5 will get you down in the 2.5 range. So it's based on how you approach it. if you're trying to do it all at one shot, you're not going to get the best results. But I can address that in detail, but the overview of that class is an hour and the class itself is 6. So
Thank you, Jerry.
It's not an easy answer.
No,
But
I
yes,
just
we
couldn't
do have
remember.
a way to get there, and I have I did a case study here in Boise with over 100 homes doing various things on it, and we have all of the published results
Okay.
off of that. So
Yeah.
yes, we've done multiple case studies and testing on it.
Thank you.
And I do know we were scheduled to 2:30 today, so thank you folks for staying a little late with us. I understand some of you have to go. Jerry, if you have time, we can take a few more follow-up questions. But again, I know if folks have other things scheduled out.
I don't want to cut anybody off, and Jerica, I apologize if I came across too strong on that specific issue, but I really do. I don't want to be the one-man show up there. If I'm not doing something or this needs to be done differently, someone's going to have to help me, or but it's going to have to be pretty quick. This is all information I'm fairly familiar with, and this is just, again, it's kind of what I thought would be appropriate based on experience. So,
Hey, Jerry, this is Charlie. I was trying to chime in a little while back and realized I was muted.
sorry.
I have to say, I did like Jerica's suggestion, I guess, that you just take those don't even put it there. We know it is a concern. You can mention it, but that way we're not leading the audience like into, oh, there's, something that we're concerned about. We're concerned about it all. So I would say, for what it's worth, I thought it was a good recommendation, what she said. And secondly, it's really, to me, down to the same issues that we've always had. We're not going to win the battle of putting exterior insulation on our walls. And so I guess that as a collaborative, are we all okay with that? Because I don't think I wouldn't even support the cost of doing that. I think the return on the investment was what, $96 a year, if I remember right, in salmon for doing that on exterior walls. So I think we're all on board with that one, not leaving that one the same. I think the attic insulation is one that's very doable for us. It's the same as we've always done. Do you guys feel like you need to go to R38 in your area, or are you going to try to push for R49? What's your feeling there?
So the other part of that, Charlie, is we're trying to show, illustrate that there are things that are beneficial. If we just put all of the information out there and we present it as a whole, I can tell you what the decision is going to be. We don't even need to have another meeting. If we put it all out there and just say, this is what the 21 looks like and this is what the 24 looks like, we don't take the time to address this.
That's my question. Did you want anything from us as to where the collaborative was leaning as far as what we would like to see supported? Or
I think at this point in the game, I was hoping for generalized support. I mean, I can pull this thing offline right now and just say, okay, I'm not able to do this. And we've been down this road. I asked for Dave to be here today because we've been down this road. We've done it for years. I've been involved in this for 15 years.
No, I don't think anybody's asking you to change anything other than maybe
Change the color of the font is really what I was getting at.
So how do we illustrate known concerns?
Mm-hmm.
My vote would be that you can maybe you can say it with your words, but otherwise not necessarily highlight it, like what Charlie was saying, is that it's leading the discussion towards being against that particular code change and therefore maybe the entire code together. But I'm not asking you to change anything. It was just a question.
So my question back to the group would be, is there somebody on the group that doesn't think that's a concern?
Well, Jerry, I think kind of like you were saying about like when you were presenting the full table and there was questions from the group of like, well, should we just narrow down on, just that climate zone or just a couple things? And you said, if we stick our heads up and open it up for discussion, then there's probably going to be a lot of pushback and those might get cut off. And I feel like we're doing the same thing by having that red font of concerns instead of saying, benefits and challenges, and just mention, like you were saying, in words of the challenges that you're hearing from builders of going from existing to, adopting something like continuous insulation, without necessarily like, highlighting it in red and
Yeah.
yeah.
This is Todd Wedepower. My opinion, just mine anyway, is that when we consider the audience, not the people sitting in the chairs, but the board, going back to what we were talking about earlier, there's only a couple that really understand building science. If we don't put something on those slides that calls out that, hey, we need to stop talking about this a little bit, it's going to go right by them. I mean, this is not something they do. Maybe the people in the chairs, it's going to be a red flag or a flag to talk more to anybody that's into building science. But those folks up there, other than a couple, like Jerry said, they don't, they're not qualified to catch something if we don't put something out there, asterisk or something, my opinion only. But
And I think they'll reach out and ask for a coalition, the way that the code board is laid out with the 10 different entities. I think they're going to want some input at that time, and I think we can give our 2 cents worth at that time. They're not going to adopt this the first reading or the first time they see this, but so I'm hoping they'll come back to us for some recommendations too. But I agree that I think what we have in there is it's very informative to them, but yeah, just soften it up a little, take the red out, and you can mention that it is a concern. We all know it is. They know it too. That's just my 2 cents worth.
Yeah, I think somebody mentioned, maybe it was Jerica, is this a way to shortcut it? They're already starting late. When I was on the board, we used to start in the fall when we looked at new codes, and they're months behind already. So, and we always spend the most time on the energy code. So if there are, hot items or items needing further discussion, it really is kind of good to point those out, because if you don't get through those, it ain't going anywhere.
If they bring these up later, if they're not fully aware of it now, and they bring them up later in the session, and then we're trying to respond to it late.
Yeah, and like Todd said, half the board
is,
needs educating on some of this stuff, and so that, like Damon has a lot of good stats and stuff that really helps. It's always about costs and benefits and return on investment, right? It's always comes back to.
But just remember, the new pitch is regulation.
Yeah.
We're not even talking about cost now. We're just talking about new regulations and new processes and stuff. And so, we can have changes in there that change the process, which changes the cost, even though it doesn't reflect it in the material. And so, how trusted are we as a group when we go in there after a year and say, well, here's what it says. I told you guys that back in January of last year. That my first presentation was review of the 2021 code. And we go back to them and we don't have You know, it's like, well, we're not sure where we're at on this, you know, this is what's in there. I mean, they can look and see what's in there. We were supposed to vet this. That's, if we go back to our mission statement, this is part of what we do as a collaborative, and to be this far into it and not be solid on what, you know, we think is beneficial and what we acknowledge is a concern.
I'm Jerry, I guess I'm a little confused. I I thought we were just presenting the facts to them. I didn't at any time did I think we had actually all met and decided this is the position we're going to take.
We're not taking a position.
That's what I mean. I just think you present the facts, and then they're going to have to, through their building code board process, decide what to amend or not. But
Okay. Well, like I said, I'm open to a point. I spent a lot of time on this. I don't work for anybody. Most of this is done because I care about Idaho. I care about all the work that everybody's put into it. If there's a better way to do this and I'm not doing it, I don't want to be the one doing it.
Jerry, I don't think we're being critical of you. We're just
Well, you're
asking
being
questions.
extremely critical of me. I've been asking for help for a year. This is the same material, the same way I've been presenting this for months. Go back and pull up a previous presentation, and we have these items listed in red. We talk about the April meeting last year. The title of it was Benefits and Concerns in April of last year.
well, I disagree. I don't think we're being critical either, Jerry. I think you asked us a question. Does anybody have any input? And when we tried to give you some, I don't think it went over very well. But we're not being critical. I think we're just we're saying really that we can't change anybody's mind. All you can do is present the facts, and they're gonna have a board that's gonna make the determination from there. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to recommend that somebody else grab this and do it.
I was also saying I think it's very important to highlight where we know that there are concerns, but do it while we're doing the presentation and not through the different coloring and stuff. That was my only feedback on this.
I am not going to compromise whatever integrity I have with that board. I'm going to be factual with them. I don't sugarcoat things. It's not my style. If this doesn't work, you guys have a couple of weeks.
Hey, Jerry, I'll just jump in. You know, if the concern is around, you know, the time and energy put into this presentation, I know you've put a lot of hours into it, and we're all very appreciative, right? You know, I'm happy to jump in and help with some of the editing. I know there's like a couple of slides we need to take out, or maybe some suggestions on how to still call out the areas that are of concern. You know, you do have a lot of feedback from the industry. And I think you're correct in that point that we want to bring that forward to them. So, you know, not just try to glaze over it. I'm happy to help with the presentation itself and taking in other feedback from folks so we can get it in good shape. I know you're wanting to send this to the board prior to their meeting so they have time to look at it and provide feedback. So we can work on that together over the next week.
I would like to repeat something I said at the very beginning. I don't know how much time they're going to give me. I don't know what they're going to allow me to present. This is the material I put together to send to them to say, you know, this is how long I think it would take for me to review this. If I don't have that much time, can we do something different? Or I can just send them the 2021 code, as we've already been through it, all the significant changes. I can send them the 2024 code, and I can send them the commercial. And then I told them they can, it's because the information is just cut and pasted from the code books, which was intentional. They can retheme it. They can put the state of Idaho on it. They can come up with their own, you know. But I feel like today, I feel exactly like I have times past when we were unwilling to recognize the difficulties. I know, Jerica, I understand people work for ICC. I understand people really want to see this thing through. But the one thing I understand better than anything else is the geopolitics and the geographic differences in this state and what will work and what won't. And that is my opinion that I'm not trying to share. You know, it would look a lot different if I just said, this is what I would support and this is what I wouldn't. When we look at this, both of these codes collectively as a whole, there is a lot to dislike from the contracting community and from others. And if we can't pull out some of the benefits and say, you know, we think this would be advantageous for the state, understanding that we're probably not going to get some of the, you know, the bigger items in there, I think we have an opportunity. I think we have a chance. But if we can't do that, then I think it's a no-go. And I'm just trying to be honest with everybody. And if, you know, if I don't feel like there's support there for doing that, then I'm not going to do it. Just, you know, I'm not going to put myself in that position. There's nothing in it for me. All I have now is my reputation, my integrity. And I'm not going to compromise that. You know, I think I have an obligation to be honest with them. If I'm not the right person, fine. I understand. I was hoping to have this to them Monday. It's going to take them some time to look through it and go through it. But we don't have until the 11th because they're trying to determine, they've got to print an agenda. And I told them that I would hold off. I wanted to send this to them earlier, or portions of it earlier, and I told them I would wait and get confirmation from the collaborative today. And I'm kind of at a loss. I thought, you know, given how massive all of this is, trying to get this condensed down and try to represent, you know, what our collaborative does and what we're, you know, the resources that are available to us. And it seems to be coming down to, you know, we don't want to state the obvious. And I just think that we're in a delicate position right now with the way things are politically. And I think the easy way out would just say, nah, we're going to hold off. And we did it before. We did it for 10 years. You know, we skipped the 12 to 15. You know, it took us 10 years to get the 18 through. Much of what we're talking about, it's the same things we fought for 10 years trying to advance those codes. It's the same story, same steps.
Gary, I would support what Tess said. We're talking about color edits or text things. We're not changing the guts of this presentation. That's my vote.
Okay. Well, I forwarded it to Lance and Tess, and so I guess, you know, I have no license on any of it, so, you know, edit as you wish, and then I'll determine whether or not that's what I want to present.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a conversation that we're going to follow up with through an email chain. Like I said, we'll make sure we get that material out. I know we have run.
So I don't really want to put this out for, you know, normally we don't put these slides out until it's been approved or edited and stuff. I really don't want to send this out and then have it get part of some legislator's agenda, you know. This is pre-board, you know, this particular presentation shouldn't go anywhere until after the board meeting.
It sounds like there was some consensus that it's going to be, like I said, still some internal work that Tess and Charlie and Jerica mentioned. I do know we're 25 minutes over, folks. Thank you for sitting around. I know we were supposed to go till 2:30. Sounds like we'll have some follow-up emails to do. We'll get the recording posted, and we're hoping to meet, I believe the 27th was the next proposed meeting date. So you'll get a follow-up email probably from Lance or the code website about that. So unless there are any very last questions or concerns, thank you all for coming out. Thank you for staying a little late. We appreciate it. Is there anything else?
Yeah, thanks, Daniel, for helping facilitate today. And, Jerry, reiterate again, thank you so much for all your work. I know you put a lot of time into this. We really do appreciate it. And I'm happy to work with you on kind of just final edits on this. So if folks have any other thoughts, feel free to send them over, and we'll touch base to get this finalized for early next week.
Sounds good, folks. I'm gonna go ahead and end the recording, get that done.